Bridging the Gap, European contribution to leave no one behind. Bridging the Gap is the flagship initiative of the European Union for the inclusion of persons with disabilities in development cooperation. The project aims at increasing the inclusion of persons with disabilities at both the international and country level through more inclusive and accessible public policies and services in line with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD, and the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Leave no one behind. The SDGs are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future. The link between the SDGs and the CRPD is strong, and it is everybody's responsibility to support the achievement of the 2030 Agenda by pushing for more inclusive societies. How is Bridging the Gap working to turn commitments into reality? SDGs 1, 2, 5, 10 and 16. Bridging the Gap's contribution to the global agenda. Bridging the Gap contributes to breaking the cycle of disability and poverty by contributing to the socio-economic inclusion, equality and non-discrimination of persons with disabilities in low and middle income countries through more inclusive and accountable institutions and policies in line with the SDGs 1. No poverty, 2. Zero hunger, 10. Reduced inequalities, and 16. Peace, justice and strong institutions, as well as with the principles of the human rights-based approach. All this through the lenses of gender mainstreaming in every action. SDG 3. Good health and well-being. Bridging the Gap supports disability-inclusive health policies in Burkina Faso, working together with the National Intersectorial Council for the Protection and Promotion of Persons with Disabilities, the Ministry of Health and the local federations of persons with disabilities. Bridging the Gap trains representatives of the national ministries on CRPD compliance and disability inclusive development and supports organisations of persons with disabilities, OPDs, with 3 sub-grants to build actions for greater access and inclusion to health services. SDG 4. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Bridging the Gap promotes the design and implementation of inclusive education policies in Ecuador, in collaboration with the National Federations of Persons with Disabilities and the National Committee for the Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities. The project has facilitated the production of inclusive education material for children with disabilities of primary schools and has ensured its mainstreaming into the national policy of public education and promotes awareness raising on inclusion in the Ecuadorian society. SDG 8. Promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. In Ethiopia, Bridging the Gap supports social protection and livelihoods through already existing resilience building programs by supporting them to become more disability inclusive. Over 200 staff members from CARE, Ethiopia's SWEEP project, regional institutional partners in the Amhara and Somali region, and international cooperation actors such as the World Food Programme, UNICEF, the European Union delegation, and UK's DFID have profited of BTG's trainings and of 6 targeted products on disability inclusion. In Sudan, Bridging the Gap helps empower national institutions and OPDs on the path to universal access to employment. Besides supporting around 100 women with disabilities from rural areas to access the local job market, Bridging the Gap has led the creation of the Group of Friends of Persons with Disabilities, made up of international organisations and donor agencies, serving as a unique space for the exchange and collaboration with the national government and OPDs. SDG 17. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalise the global partnership for sustainable development. In Paraguay, Bridging the Gap infuses knowledge and tools to create a set of indicators for the National Plan for the Human Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in collaboration with international experts, the National Ministry of Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities, and OPDs. The project also supports the national government to consolidate its disability databases and leads the efforts of the international development community to mainstream disability inclusion through dedicated seminars and meetings. The global dimension of Bridging the Gap. At a global level, Bridging the Gap develops tools to promote the rights, participation and inclusion of persons with disabilities in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda in line with the CRPD, such as human rights indicators, guidelines for policymakers on CRPD-informed SDGs, guidance on data sources to help populate indicators, training materials, and pilot researchers on mainstreaming and OPD's capacity. Webinars, workshops, awareness-raising events as well as disability equality trainings come along to support considering disability as a cross-cutting matter in international cooperation. We aim to create the basis for more solid, inclusive and accessible policies and services in low and middle-income countries. We are ambitious and committed, and we will need everybody's support to ensure that by 2030, the vision of the Sustainable Development Goals becomes a reality for all, with no one left behind. Follow us, and let's advance together on the path of inclusion. This video was produced with the financial support of the European Union. Its contents are the sole responsibility of Bridging the Gap and do not necessarily reflect the views of the European Union.